Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel called Zuzanareacts, where I learn all things power up with your help, and I just share my Slovak Central European point of view. And in today's video we are looking into why is everyone becoming a fan of India. So I haven't previewed the video, but I'm super curious, and before we jump into this video,
please like this video and click on the subscribe button and turn on the notification. Thank you so much for your support.
India is changing. The idea of India, the country, is changing. Not because it's the fastest growing economy, nor because we have the largest population. Those are great stats, don't get me wrong, but I want to talk about India's influence, India's standing in the world, and the world's opinion of India changing. See, 30 to 40 years ago, if you ask someone from the US or Europe, they'd know India for its culture, spicy food, and yoga. I mean, those are good things to be known for, but when you're a country with ambitious goals like becoming the next global superpower, then I'm sorry, but spicy food and Surya Namaskars are not enough. No offense to yoga influencers, you guys are great. See, today, when you ask the same people or their leaders what is their idea of India, you will get a different answer. Take the current superpower USA's stance with India in 1971. The US provided diplomatic and military support to Pakistan during the war against India. But today, the US is one of India's close allies, and one of their top defense and securities company, Lockheed Martin, has partnered with Tata to manufacture F-21 jets right here in India. So what led to US doing this complete 180 degrees? How did a prime minister become friends with the most feared man in the world? And why is Deepika Padukone presenting the FIFA World Cup? How did a nation known for its food and culture become known for its power, mainly its soft power?
okay, what is this Deepika person? Let me know in the comments below. I've never heard of her.
I'm Atina Maya, and in this video, I'm going to answer all these questions for you. The growth of India's soft power has happened over many decades through small and big steps and some incredible leaps. In this video, I want to cover these 3 leaps that got India here, and a bonus one if you stick around till the end. Before we get into how India grew its soft power, let's understand what is this soft power. Soft power is a lot of things, including influence, persuasion, reputation, and the ability to get something done without force. Here's an example for you guys.
अरे मेरा राजा बेटा सो रहा है। ये देख मम्मी ने दाल चावल बनाया है, खा ले। छी बाबा, क्या बोरिंग खाना है। दाल चावल खा खा के मेरे दिमाग का चावल बन गया है। ऐसा कर, फटाफट से दाल चावल खा ले, नहीं तो तेरी पॉकेट मनी कट कर दूं। ओ सॉरी पापा, कितना टेस्टी खाना है ये।
So this is a very simple and straightforward example to explain you what soft power means. But what if we take this to the next level? A real life example, the first leap involving COVID vaccines and Apple's iPhones. In 2020 and 2021, during the pandemic, the world needed vaccines and it needed them immediately. And there were very, very few places in the world from where you could manufacture these vaccines quickly, cheaply, and at an enormous scale. There were actually really just 2 options, that's India and China. China got the head start with Sinopharm and Sinovac, but they lost their advantage because these Chinese vaccines faced skepticism because there was no transparency in their clinical trial data, and their efficacy rates were lower compared to other vaccines such as Pfizer, Moderna, and AstraZeneca, Oxford. Now, these factors led to hesitation among countries to accept these Chinese vaccines. This is where Indian vaccines come into play. This is an example of soft power of India. India has a nickname for pharmacy of the world, all thanks to the Serum Institute of India, or the SII. The SII partnered with AstraZeneca to produce Covishield, also called AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine. Covishield vaccine showed efficacy and safety in clinical trials and gained international approval and emergency use authorizations. India, in fact, exported Covishield to many of its neighbors, to the Middle East, to African nations, and even to Brazil.
आजा आजा मुन्ना आजा। शूट। ब्राजील।
सर, मैं नहीं कर सकता सर। कोविड के टाइम पे उन्होंने हमको वैक्सीन नहीं दी।
वे कम बखत। शूट। मैं नहीं कर सकता। क्यों? हमारे देश में सारे सीईओस इंडियन ही हैं। यूजलेस। शूट नहीं, मैं ये नहीं कर सकता। क्यों? क्योंकि हमारा प्राइम मिनिस्टर ही तो इंडियन है।
This role of vaccine provider during this global pandemic strengthened its ties with many nations and increased India's soft power a lot. This transparency and trust in India's manufacturing in this space has led to many more opportunities for different industries. Like manufacturing iPhones in India. Last year, India made 3% of the world's iPhones, and this year it's predicted to increase to 6 to 7%. And over the years, it'll be even more because US wants to completely shift its manufacturing from China to India. That is more jobs for Indians and one more layer of friendship with the US. India is truly becoming the epicenter of all sorts of innovation. And speaking of innovation, here's one from India's startup ecosystem called Multiple that you should definitely look out for. Second leap in India's soft power is through its people and money. The people I'm talking about are the Indian diaspora that live abroad, the NRIs and the OCIs. You've seen them on Netflix, and some of them run the biggest tech companies in the
Oh my god, I know this one. I'm going back to this one. I love her. I watched the Netflix series. Like I watch a lot of silly shit, but I love her. She's so much fun.
You've seen them on Netflix, and some of them run the biggest tech companies in the US. Now, I know that these people are officially citizens of another country, but nevertheless, this contributes to the brand value of India globally. I mean, one of them is a leader of an entire nation, a nation whose ancestors once colonized us. Can you imagine the reverse happening in India? In the financial year 2022, India received the highest ever FDI of $84.8 billion in services. That's a crazy amount of money flowing from foreign VCs to India. And you know what's even crazier? The money your uncle, auntie, nana, nani are sending back home.
वेलकम टू शाम तक। रिसेंट खबरों के हिसाब से इंडिया की फॉरेन डायरेक्ट इन्वेस्टमेंट को बीट कर दिया है एक नए वेंचर कैपिटल फंड ने, जिसका नाम है NVC, नानी वेंचर कैपिटल फंड। आज हमारे साथ स्टूडियो में है नानी जी, जो कि CEO है NVC। नानी जी, प्लीज लेट अस नो मोर अबाउट योर जर्नी।
80 साल की हो गई, बहुत पैसा डॉलर जुटे हैं। हमारा ओल्ड एज होम में भी सबका वही हाल था, तो हमने सोचा एक स्टार्टअप खोल लेते, तो देश की भी तरक्की हो जाती और हमारा नानी बनने का फर्ज भी पूरा हो जाता। आ रही हूँ मैं शार्क टैंक में, शार्क टैंक।
Yes, the amount of money being saved and sent back home by these NRIs and OCIs is more than the FDI in India. The third leap in India's soft power is through the Indian startups. Traditionally, many Indian startups are inspired to start companies that already work in the West. Amazon started in US in 1994. 13 years later, we got Flipkart in India. Airbnb started in the US in 2008. 5 years later, we got Oyo Rooms here. Uber started in the US in 2009. 1 year later, we had Ola. But today, this trend is changing. Now, startups from other countries are being inspired from Indian startups. India literally went from being a nation that seek to copy business playbooks from startups from the West to being the nation which has now become the trendsetter for startups globally. Look at this tweet by Ankur Nagpal. The evidence for this is in the data we found in Bloom's Indus Valley Report 2023. India is the fourth largest country in terms of venture capital investments and comparatively gets more funding than its contribution to the global GDP. Now, what does this mean for India's brand internationally? This flow of money makes India and Indian companies attractive for entrepreneurs and employees. The Indian kid who wanted to go to Harvard, take on debt, and then start a company can do that right here, right now in India. The employees who want attractive salaries don't need to work for a US back office in India anymore. They can just work for Indian companies. India is positioning itself as a center for innovation, entrepreneurship, and economic growth by becoming a significant player in the global VC investment landscape. India, in fact, overtook China by adding 23 new unicorns in 2022. In fact, speaking of investments, the bonus leap in India's soft power and the last one is India's attitude. So, the country Switzerland is the gold standard of neutrality. Drawing inspiration from that, India was the first to adopt the strategy of non-alignment. Non-alignment was a word made famous by V.K. Krishna Menon. He also wrote the first draft of the preamble to the Constitution. In simple terms, non-aligned is not taking a side. By laying the foundation stone of non-alignment movement, India was able to establish a significant role for itself as a leader of the newly independent world and in the multilateral organizations like the United Nations. 5 core principles of non-alignment are mutual respect for territories, mutual non-aggression, mutual non-interference in domestic affairs, equality and mutual benefit, and peaceful coexistence. Initially, these principles backfired, like during Sino-Indian War, because India was non-aligned and India was also isolated. But over the past decades, India has traded, held, and cultivated its relations with other countries. India has become an allied nation with many countries, and now the same non-aligned strategy is working in India's favor. Say what you will about the Modi government, but they have stuck to these non-alignment principles every step of the way. At the beginning of the Russia and Ukraine war, India condemned Russia's actions but abstained from voting against Russia and stood non-aligned and maintained its relations. Many nations like the US and Germany, who did vote against Russia, are facing the backlash from their citizens right now. All this soft power gained from this action will be critical if there's a clash between India and China in the future. Because India has made allies with some of the most powerful nations like US, UK, France, Russia, UAE, and many more. If there's a threat to India, these countries will step in, not just for goodwill, but to protect their country's trade interests. I can go on about the different ways India has developed its soft power, but you can see it unfold with your own eyes in the coming years.
Right. So, first of all, can I just acknowledge the fact that I love the video? I think it was just so well put together. And I love the enthusiasm of the lady. The way she was presenting it. I totally loved it. Okay, so quite a few things that have been covered. I think she talks about India going to be a superpower. Now, from your comments, interestingly enough, you say you're not interested in India being superpower. But she was positioning India as becoming the next superpower, which I believe it's going to become, whether, whatever connotation and meaning you might associate with that, whether it's like you think of the word superpower or as bad or good, but I don't see it in a negative way. So that is one thing that I wanted to call out. So and yes, the image, I think, and why the other countries are paying attention is the India's actually rising economy, and the fact that I think after the COVID, China has lost its credibility and everyone wants to shift the operations to India. I think in other videos, we talk about the fact that Indian people speak English to a much extent, much better than people in China. So it's much easier for the West to move the operations there. So I think that's important. I think, and that is just completely unsubstantiated, that politicians and business people, they really are understanding what's happening in India for the economic power, right? Like when she was talking about that India is becoming a diplomatic fence with so many important countries, it's all because of the trade, right? Like unfortunately, we all work for money and our livelihoods are dependent on money. So the trade interests are super critical. So I think like people that are business people that work on the international scales and politicians are increasingly becoming aware of the rise of India. I don't think that general people, common people actually are. So and it was interesting when she talked about, sorry, I'm looking at my notes, and when she talked about pharmacy of the world, I've noticed that in other videos, but I wasn't aware that India was considered a pharmacy of the world. Now, Co-Shield, as she talks about the Indian vaccine. Now, it was only when I was watching your videos I knew about this. I had no idea that India was supplying vaccines to countries like Africa or UAE, etc. Now, honestly, until actually this video, I haven't heard the word Co-Shield, the name of the vaccine. A vaccine in the West became very, very controversial because they were forced on people. It looks like in India, people really welcomed them. Here, People had very different points of view if to get vaccinated or not. It was a very divisive topic in the society. So yeah, and I do not know what NRIs or OCIs are. If you could let me know in the comments below. I believe like nationals, like Indian nationals that are popular in Netflix or in the businesses perhaps. So finally, she was talking about startups, and I kind of, it just, India feels so far away that you're not usually paying attention unless it's your own interest. That I was not aware that India would be a trendsetter of startups. I would still feel like this is the US or potentially UK, but nonetheless, there are many countries even within Europe itself. They're calling themselves like like a hub for startups, and suddenly every country almost in the Europe could claim that. So I take these things a bit with a pinch of salt, but I, based on the data, it looks like that there has been an increase. For example, the way, because I worked in advertising for so many years. The way we look at it, at least in advertising in the West, is that whatever comes up, like for us, China is the key, country to look at. Like whatever has been going on in China is going to. It's so funny because this comes from basically from China to Europe. Like, so if you watch, let's say, their Alibaba stuff, or like their e-retailers, then you see kind of what the trends are. They will eventually be adopted in Europe. So actually it comes east west, not west east, as people might mistakenly think, but I never heard of India taking over that space. So very interesting video. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Do let me know what you thought about the video in the comments below. If there's anything you can help me clarify and understand per my questions, I would love to know in the comments. And until the next video, I hope you enjoyed this one. Please, if you did, give it a thumbs up, share and subscribe to this channel. And I hope to see you in the next one. Until then, you take care. Much love. Bye-bye.